Hey everybody, welcome to Do You Believe on Paranormal Zone TV. I want to thank you all so much for joining us tonight. And I have an awesome show, and I have one of my best friends with us tonight, Dave Spinks, who is a paranormal investigator. He is a researcher and an author. His latest book is Real West Virginia Hauntings, and that's our topic for the show tonight. So let's all welcome Dave Spinks. Hey Dave.
Hey, Norene, how you doing?
Oh, I'm fine, honey. How you doing?
I'm great. Busy.
Oh, my gosh. Okay, so before we start, would you please tell the viewers about yourself?
As far as paranormal investigating goes, I've been doing this for a little over 30 years, roughly. I am ex-military and federal law enforcement officer, retired in 2011. And when I retired, I took what I did in the paranormal and took it public. All during my working life, I was investigating the paranormal since a young man after an experience I had with my grandfather in the woods of West Virginia. And ever since then, I've been investigating. It morphed into investigating into people's homes, reports of hauntings, ghosts, monsters, and more, So it's just a hobby gone crazy for me, so to speak.
Well, Dave, you've been on quite a few. You have a lot of upcoming TV shows that you're going to be featured on as well. Now, you have one on Monday. Do you want to tell them about that?
Yeah, a really cool thing, and this is the second time this has happened to me, is I'm getting to share one of the stories out of my new book, out of the Real West Virginia Hauntings Volume 1 book. It's going to be told on a show called Paranormal 911 that focuses on law enforcement and first responders, firemen, EMTs, folks that were on duty and had a paranormal experience while on duty. And I so happen to have had one of those. I've had a couple, actually. And the story got out to some of the TV folks in my book, and they wanted me to tell it on the show.
Now, Dave, now everybody, underneath this video, I posted the links to Dave's website and where you can purchase a signed copy. The book has not been released yet, but they are taking pre-sales, huh, Dave?
Yeah, if you want to pre-order it, it should be out any time now. So if you want to be one of the first ones to get a signed copy directly from me, you can do a pre-order on my PayPal. And make sure you include your shipping address, and I will send you a signed copy. Yeah. Include your name and shipping address. The price is $23. That includes shipping.
Awesome. Hey, Dave, you're really becoming well known in the paranormal field, not only for ghosts, spirits, and hauntings, but also for cryptids. And you're really getting noticed, and you know that as well. And so how did you get into not only ghosts and spirits and hauntings, but into the cryptids? How did you get involved in that? And UFOs?
I've told the story many times. I've told it on your show. Me and my grandfather were fishing here in the woods of West Virginia back in '83, and we had an encounter with what could only be described as a Bigfoot. And ever since that time, it changed my life, really. It set me on a course pursuing answers as to what the heck it was that we saw that day and what it was. And shortly thereafter, I had another experience with my other grandpa who died, and the night he died, he came to see me, and I didn't know he was dead till the next day. So those two things really had a profound effect on me, and I've been pursuing answers ever since, So... And many people out there, from all walks of life have had crazy experiences that, they want to know answers to. And I guess, in a sense, I was one of the ones that kind of took it to the next level.
Oh, yeah. Well, you're getting well known for because you are a native from West Virginia, and you concentrate on that area, which is extremely haunted. I don't think West Virginia is minus anything. They got the hauntings, the ghosts, the UFOs, the Bigfoot. What else does West Virginia have, Dave?
We have it all here. I mean, there's all kind of cryptid reports, from Bigfoot to Goatman to Mothman to hellhounds to dogmen to you name it, we got it. Flying humanoid creatures. We have a whole plethora state, as well as many of you know out there, just a ton of haunted locations. You've got Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum, Moundsville Penitentiary. Some of the biggest known haunted locations in the world are right here in West Virginia. Not to mention, you know, the normal local stories too, of hauntings and folklore tales, and you know, we've got it all here. And then early in the 50s and 60s, West Virginia has some of the most well-known ufology reports there are, and at one time it was considered the UFO capital of the world, right here in West Virginia, because there were so many people reporting strange lights in the skies, visitations and encounters from extraterrestrials, the whole 9 yards. We have it right here in this little tiny state.
Wow. Oh my God. So now, Dave, you have Real West Virginia Hauntings, and you're going to talk tonight about some of the hauntings that are these in your book, Dave?
Yes, they are. Basically, the books came about because you know, I've been doing this for so long, and I have so much information compiled. And talking to my good friend Weatherly, who owns his own publishing company, he's like, Dave, you got to get that stuff into books, because you know, you have so much to share with the public. And my books are not just the stories of the hauntings and the murders and whatnot. They are actually added in are my investigations of those locations and what I experienced during those investigations. And this book series, Real West Virginia Hauntings, there's going to be at least 3, probably up to 5 of them, because I have so much material and so many investigations. You know, the whole goal in my head was to put in at least one investigation of a haunted location that I've done in every single county in West Virginia, which there's 55 counties. Mm-hmm. So, and I've done literally at least one in every single county in this state. And of course, some counties will have multiple stories and investigations that I've conducted there. And you know, this is over many years, you know, that I've compiled this stuff. So, you know, why not get it out there? Why not share it, and share it with the public, what I experienced at these specific locations here in West Virginia.
Oh yeah. Now, okay, the first case that Dave is going to talk about, and this is absolutely freaky. And Dave, tell them about this. This is the Greenbrier Ghost.
Yes, the Greenbrier Ghost is one of the most famous ghost stories in the whole world, because it's the only time in recorded history that a living human was basically convicted and prosecuted of a murder that they committed by the testimony, so to speak, of a ghost. And it's very intriguing tale, and it has a lot of synchronicities with me, especially because, number one, I'm the only professional, you know, if you want to call it that, investigator. I consider myself a professional with the experience level I have in this field, that has been allowed to investigate inside the actual house she was murdered in. I'm the only person of a professional nature, okay? So that, to me, is really awesome that I had that opportunity to get in the house, spend an entire night in there, and investigate it. And if you want to see the investigation, you can go to my Real Supernatural channel, and you can see what I got there. It's on my channel, Greenbrier Ghost.
Oh,
just look it up.
Absolutely.
So the story is a woman named, now some of these names are really different. They're old names, so, you know, bear with me. A woman by the name of Elva Zona Hester was a young woman, and she had a kid out of wedlock, which is like a very bad thing back in these days. She was born in 1873 and murdered in 1897.
96.
And a drifter. Now, I had to write this guy's name down because I always get it wrong, because he has like 4 names. It's Edward Stribling Trout Shuey. Okay, so a drifter came into town, and this is in Lewisburg, in West Virginia, right down the road from my house. This drifter came into town. He met Zona. She liked to be called Zona, her middle name, and they quickly fell in love and were married. And they lived very happily, as the story is important because he was sent on an errand by Mr. Shuey to retrieve something from his house. This is a perfect cover, okay? The little boy finds Zona's body at the bottom of the stairs with her feet together and her hand on her stomach. He runs home, tells his mother. His mother, in turn, sends someone out to get the local doctor. Well, in the meantime, it took the doctor an hour to get to the house. By the time he got to the house, Mr. Shuey had already taken her body upstairs to the bedroom and had changed her clothes and was holding on to her head in his lap. And while the doctor was trying to conduct the examination of her body, he noted some bruising on her neck, and as he tried to investigate that further, Mr. Shuey went ballistic and threw a fit and went crazy and was acting like he was so distraught that, throwing a fit, that the doctor just said, okay, and quit the examination and left. Okay? So, two highly suspicious things. He sent the boy to the house because he already knew she was dead. He killed her. And number two, he had already changed his wife's clothing and put her in a very high neck dress. Now, in those days, that was highly unusual because the women typically did the dressing and the cleaning of the bodies when anyone died in a family, okay? So, as the funeral comes, the mom and dad, Zona's mom and dad were notified about their daughter's death. Now, it's said that immediately that the mother did not like Mr. Shuey when he met her daughter. She took a dislike to him immediately and was opposed to the marriage. And the parents were notified, and then everybody came in for the wake. Well, during the wake, Mr. Shuey was acting very strangely. He was standing by the casket the whole time, and he had put these towels and stuff around, these things around her neck, like to conceal, like he wouldn't let anyone look at her neck. She was in a very high neck dress, and when anyone tried to get close to her, he threw a bloody fit and, was acting very, very strangely. Typical, he was showing signs that he was trying to cover up, what really happened to her. But in those days, the husband really wasn't questioned that much. So they went ahead and they buried her and everything. The mom was highly suspicious. They also found some sheets in the house that had blood on them. And they had been washed, but not very good, because when the mom washed the sheets, the blood came out of them, and there was all this just suspicious activity going on. So they buried her, and as it's said in the story, the mom began having dreams of her daughter coming to her, telling her that Trout had killed her. And the mom was adamant. She went to the sheriff's office numerous times, went to the medical examiner, which, the mortician and the doctors, and said, look, I want you to dig my daughter's body up and examine her. And it took her several attempts, and they got some witnesses to tell the sheriff how he was acting and all this stuff. So long story short, they exhumed her body, took it in to the doctor with several witnesses, and they actually made Mr. Shuey go and sit in the next room while they were examining her body. Well, during the examination, the doctor noted that her neck was actually broken and her throat was crushed. So right there and there, bam, he was taken into custody, put in prison, and charged with murder of his wife. During that time, they discovered that Mr. Shuey had also been married several previous times, and all of his wives had come up dying under mysterious circumstances. So this guy was a serial murderer. He would marry women, take them for everything they had, and kill them. Kill them and then take them for everything he had. So, as the story goes, he went to Moundsville Penitentiary, another place I've investigated extensively, where he soon died in prison of a sickness. And he's buried in an unmarked grave just under a number up in the prison cemetery there. So it's a really cool story. The ghost told the mom told the sheriff and the doctors, and sure enough, she was murdered by her husband.
My God.
So really spooky story. Now, during my investigation there, a friend of mine who's a novice investigator, he's the one that knew the guy that owned it and set it all up. And we got to spend the night in the house and investigate. And we got some really good ghost box responses. We got Trout's name on the ghost box numerous times, and we got Zona's name. And we got her saying she was murdered in a female voice. So, you know, I don't think it was an active haunt, but it was more like a residual, you know, type of thing there. And very, very cool piece of West Virginia history and paranormal history, if you will.
So he was only convicted of the one murder? Hers?
Yeah, because the other ones had happened, you know, and they never charged him, and it was in other states that this happened in. So he went to prison and died, you know, in prison.
He's a good-looking man. Oh my gosh, I could see why she felt for him.
Yeah, they said he was like a playboy, you know, and he would, he would go from town to town and meet these women and marry them, and they would end up dying, you know, and it would happen. I think it happened at least 3 other times. So,
she had a child. What happened to it?
I don't know what happened to her child.
Okay. All right, so
there's really not much history on that. Now, some of the relatives still live very close to here, you know. So, and I'm continuing on with this whole story because I've been investigating and doing some EVP work at her gravesite as well, and that stuff will be on my channel this year.
Oh God, Dave, how awesome is that?
Mm-hmm.
Let's see.
So it's West Virginia history.
Yeah.
It's a famous ghost story. There's been many books written about it. I'm basically telling the story of it and my results of my investigations in the house and at the grave. So
now, what about the people that are living in that house? Are they experiencing anything?
They said they have little things happen here and there, but not anything like where it's negative in nature, or you know, because I feel she got justice. You know, she told her story to her mom. Her mom got her body exhumed, and he ultimately died in prison. So I think that spirit is pretty much at rest.
So, Dave, why did they take the mother's word for it that her spirit came to her?
If you read about it and you look it up and Google it and stuff, they said she was very, very persistent, almost demanding, you know, and she said, look, I know she was murdered, and I'm, you know, very persistent, and she was telling everybody she could tell, you know, and then almost accusatory of the local authorities, saying they're not doing their job and stuff, almost forcing them to do it. So they went ahead and just did it, and sure enough, or it was proven that she was murdered.
Did he admit to it?
No, he never really admitted to it that I know of. He would make there was some stuff written about some of the remarks he would make and stuff, you know, and then it was said that he had told another inmate that he did it, you know, and that he did it to a bunch of women.
I wonder if she tried to give any messages to anybody else beside the mother. Does anybody know about that?
No, there was nothing else said anywhere that I could find on it.
Okay. All right, now the next one, Dave, this one, oh my goodness. Mamie Thurmond, holy cow. Go ahead, tell us the story.
Another very well documented and famous case here in West Virginia out of Logan County. A young woman named Mamie Thurmond, who was married to, they're originally from Kentucky, married to a man who became a local patrolman in Logan City, West Virginia, which is now Logan County, West Virginia. She was born in 1900, died in 1932, 32 years old. Now, this woman was very popular with the gentleman, very, you know, described as a very, very beautiful woman, very flirtatious and dressed kind of risque for the times, and a lot of the women called her a harlot and, you know, whatnot, and because they were jealous because their husbands would, you know, Google and, you know, just oodle over her and whatnot. There was many rumors about this woman having an affair with the landlord, and maybe possibly even more than one man. Her and her husband had a landlord that they rented their home from, and it was said that, you know, she may have been having an affair there with the landlord and possibly another couple of people in town. Her body was found in a location known as 22 Mine Road in Logan County, and she was found by a young boy who was out picking blackberries, and her body was thrown kind of over the hill. Her throat had been cut ear to ear, and she was shot twice in the left side of her head. So it was a very violent crime, very bloody, and it was very personal in nature. For someone to cut someone's throat, that's a very personal crime. Now, the next day after her body was found, the local mortician, he would be likened to the forensic pathologist today. Okay, he was an investigator and whatnot, and he went into the landlord's home and discovered, because there was talk of the town where she was having an affair, and he speculated that maybe, something happened and the landlord had killed her. So he went into the house, found some bloody sheets and stuff, and a straight razor, which they theorized that was used to cut her throat. Well, lo and behold, the landlord had a live-in handyman, and his name was, let me remember here, I wrote it down, Charles Stevenson, and he was a black man. Well, subsequently, he was charged with the murder and convicted. The town was in a whole uproar over this. It really shook the whole town up. That a small community town like this, someone could be murdered so violently. And many thought that the handyman was not guilty. The town was in an uproar, and then there was like a mistrial and everything, and then he was retried and convicted. So, and where he was sent to the pen and ended up dying there. And to this day, the Mamie Thurmond case is one of those folklore tales and true tales that it just is one of those big stories that's never going to go away. And the folklore of it is that her ghost roams 22 Mine Road. And many a traveler in trucks and cars have reported seeing her ghost and hearing these horrible just screams and moans of pain. And it's said to be her ghost roaming this road. There's also another tale where you can park your car in an uphill direction there, and your car will roll uphill, and they say it's the ghost of Mamie Thurmond pushing your car. And I investigated that place. I've been there a couple of times now, and the first time I was there back in the day, I really didn't have good camera and stuff, but I heard with my own ears a very faint, far-off screaming sound, and it really was really spooky. But I plan on going back there more and doing more stuff there. I wrote about the investigation in my book, and I don't want to give too much about these stories away because I want folks to read my book.
Oh, yeah.
So,
absolutely.
But Google Mamie Thurmond, guys. It's a crazy story. It's one of those horrible murder tales. I think from what I've read and some of the court records I've looked at, I think the guy, Charles Stevenson, I think he was set up, man. I think either her husband caught her philandering, she was messing around, and I think the husband may have done it personally.
There was something about her...
He was a cop, you got to remember that, so he could have got away with it.
Oh, yeah. But there was something about her grave.
Oh, yeah. Her grave, to this day, no one knows where she is actually buried at. It was said she was buried there in the local cemetery, but there's no grave. Some say she was taken back to Kentucky, but no grave has ever been found of her, which is really strange. For such a famous story and person that was very well known in that town, and such a tragic death to take place, you would have thought that she would have a well-marked grave somewhere, either back home in her home state of Kentucky or here in West Virginia.
What is this Louise Robinson? Does she have something to do with that case?
Well, Louise Robinson?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay. All right. Awesome, Dave. Okay, so the next one...
Like I said,
what?
there was... Louise Robinson was the landlord's wife, I believe. Yeah. And she was said that I believe it was said by her that she was very jealous of Mamie, and that she thought that her and her husband were having an affair. So, there's another suspect right there.
Oh,
she could have done it.
Okay, yeah, because I'm showing the picture of the husband. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's the connection. Okay.
Yeah.
All
Thanks
right.
for jogging my memory on that.
Oh, that's okay, honey. All right, so now Dave has a show. What time you have to leave? 7?
10 o'clock.
Okay. Okay, so the next one Dave is going to talk about is Droop Mountain Battlefield. I never heard of this. So tell us.
Whipple Company store.
Oh, it's all... Wait a minute. What do you mean Whipple Company store?
Never heard of what? What are we doing
now?
Okay.
We're doing Droop Mountain Battlefield.
Oh, okay. It don't matter. It doesn't matter what order they're in. Droop Mountain Battlefield here in West Virginia. Greenbrier County, I believe. Yeah. So, Droop Mountain was the last major battle of the Civil War. A lot of folks don't know that. Happened on November 6, 1863. There was 5,000 Union troops and 1,200 Confederate troops. There was a skirmish the day before, and the Union forces had pushed the Confederates back on top of this mountain to where their fortifications were, and it's known as Droop Mountain. And there was a pretty intense battle, and a lot of guys, there was, I think, 119 Union casualties and 275 Confederate casualties during this battle. Now, basically, the Union won. They had an overwhelming force compared to the Confederates. The Confederates retreated back to Lewisburg, and there was over 100 deaths on the Confederate side alone, and some of them are buried up on top of Droop Mountain still, and the other 96 were taken to the city of Lewisburg, which is about 30 miles away, and there's an old stone church there that was built in the 1700s, and I've actually investigated in that graveyard. You guys have seen me on my channel. It has the statue of the crying angel that said, if you kiss the angel, you die. There's a whole superstition with that graveyard there, too. Well, what they did was, in order to let the families try to come and collect the bodies of their dead, instead of burying them, they stacked them up around the outside of this old stone church. And the old stone church is beautiful. You ever get to Lewisburg, West Virginia, I highly recommend visiting this place. It was built in the 1700s, and it's pristine. It's beautiful to this day. And so after some time, you can imagine the stench and, the decay of these bodies. They had to do something with them when the people didn't come to collect the bodies of their fallen loved ones. So they took them up on the hill, and they dug a mass grave in the shape of a cross, and they buried 96 guys, 96 Confederate soldiers, where they're still buried today, and I've investigated there. You've seen me investigate that place. Extremely haunted, okay? Both of the old stone church graveyard and this mass grave up on the hill, both are extremely haunted locations. Now, going back to Droop Mountain, over the years after that battle, they're still finding artifacts from that battle today. They have a little museum there. I've investigated in that and caught some just amazing paranormal evidence. And many people, travelers, and locals have witnessed ghostly soldiers on top of this battlefield all over the place. There's actual people that have heard cannon fire, musket shots. And there's a few people that live on top of the mountain. They say, and I've interviewed them, and they say that they hear it all the time. And numerous people have seen the ghost of soldiers walking on this mountain. Well, I got the unique opportunity, and as far as I know to this day, I'm the only one that's ever been allowed to stay overnight and investigate the museum where they have the actual artifacts from the battle that they've dug up on that battlefield. And they're one item really stands out to me in there, and it's a pristine drum from the battle. The little, they used to use little boys to be the drummer boys during these battles. 12, 8, 10, 11, 12-year-old kids. Well, during the battle, and they were not supposed to ever leave their drum. Well, during the battle, this little boy must have got shot or something because they found a drum over on the backside of the hill. Either that or he ran off and just took off and left it. But they have that, and a local family had this drum in their attic for years. And this drum looks like it was made yesterday. It's in pristine condition, and they got it in this really nice glass case. Well, me and Charlie, the same guy that did the, he was a novice investigator, and he wanted to tag along with me during some investigations, so I took him along, I always try to help new investigators and teach them the ropes and whatnot, so I took him with me on this one as well. And we got, some crazy stuff in that place. You can see the video on my YouTube. We had shadow figure movement in the museum. We heard screams and moans of pain, like people were, shot and wounded. You've got all these artifacts in there, and to include bullets that probably killed people, along with the drums and everything. And it's one of those iconic locations here in West Virginia, and I've got to spend quite a bit of time there and investigate.
Wow, Dave, what experiences you've had. Wow. All right, so the next one is I never heard of this one either, the Whipple Company Store. What's that all about?
Okay, now this is one of my favorites because the Whipple Company Store, okay, here in West Virginia, of course, going way back, it was Virginia before the Civil War. But here in West Virginia, we're known for coal mining, okay, and the whole coal mining tragedies that took place here. Number one, basically coal mines in the early days, they brought in migrant workers like Irishmen and black folks and Chinamen and everything else, and these people were basically nothing more than slaves. And they called them coal barons, the ones that came in with the big money, and they built these stores, okay? They're called the company store. And there's songs about it, many songs from famous artists write about, sold my soul to the company store. If you listen to that old music, you'll know what I'm talking about. What they would do is how they own these people, okay? They would pay them in what is known as script money. It's not real American money. It's the company's money. And they would mint their own coins, and you had to buy everything you had, including your food, your work equipment, and everything from the company store. And they paid you with their money, so they basically could jack the price up on shovels and everything like that. And if you didn't buy it from the company store, you were beat, sometimes even murdered, because that's how much control they had on these people. Now, the Whipple Company Store was built in 1900 and operated as a retail store until 1957. But there was 4 of these buildings built, and they're built in the strangest shape you can imagine. You can see if Norene's showing the pictures what they look like. They are built with a specific purpose in mind, and they had Pinkerton guards, Pinkerton-type hired security guys that would run these stores. They were built in the octagon shape, and there would be an office in the upper back section in the second floor. And that guy that worked up there, he could hear everything that was being said in that store because of the design of the acoustics of the building. And they would always search out and look for disgruntled employees, miners that were talking of strikes and stuff. And then these Pinkerton men would wait for them to come out of the mine off their shift, and they would shoot them dead right there. That's how grisly and horrible these people were treated. And the company store, it was a one-stop shop. It had its own morgue. You bought your food there. You bought all your mining supplies there, your shovels, your headlamps, all your stuff you bought from the company store. Well, there's several different tragic stories with this building. There was 4 of these built by the same guy. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. I have to look it up, but that's the only one still standing to this day. And it still has a ton of stuff in it from the mining days and when it operated. Now, underneath the ground in this store, they had a hidden entrance to the mines, and they would send in these Pinkerton guards dressed as miners to spy on the miners to see if there was any talk of striking or just unrest with the miners. It was so bad that when there was talk of these miners, like I said, they would shoot them dead, or they would roll these train cars up, because they lived in mining camps, the people. They would pull these train cars up, and they would have machine guns in them, and they would just mow them down, and then bring in the next group of people. And then we're talking women, children, all kinds of stuff. So this store, these people were very, very bad people. They made millions of dollars off the backs of these pretty much slaves. And we're not talking about just black folks. I mean, we're talking white people that worked in the mines, Irishmen, you know, native or Chinamen, and black folks. And whoever was working in the mines at those days were treated terribly. So there's one story there, and also the woman that used to own the store, she just recently sold it after she did as much refurbishing as she could, and she just couldn't do it anymore. She showed us a book when I was there investigating, and it had and these guys were so cheap, it's just disgusting. When the miners would die in accidents and stuff, in order to save money, they would build their own coffins, the company store would. They would make them very small, and what they would do was take their legs and break them over and put them in these teeny little coffins so they didn't have to spend as much money on wood.
Damn.
And there was over 20,000 deaths that happened in this particular area for this mining store. And she had a book with all of them in them, all the people's names. And it's just crazy that what went on here. And then they had like I said, they had their own morgue, and when they would do the embalming procedures or whatever, there was a creek that ran right under the store, and the townspeople would talk of how the creek would run red with blood after mining disasters and stuff. So you can imagine the energies that are in this place, right? And there's one story that really sticks out in my mind. There was a little child sent out by his mother to retrieve some milk and bread or whatever. Well, the company store was closed, so she sent him to the next town over. He had to hike through the woods like 5 miles to get to this other store. Well, he bought the bread and milk and came back, and I guess they got word, the Pinkerton Guard type people got word that this was going on, and they were ordered to shoot this boy when they saw him coming back with the food. Well, it was a foggy night, and one of the guards saw this figure coming through the fog and everything, thought it was his boy. Well, he shot, and it was actually a little girl, and he killed her. It was the wrong person. And they said that they took her body and they buried her in the floor of this store right by the morgue because they tried to cover it up. And she's still buried there today, according to what we know from the prior owner. So during my investigation there, and a key note too is somebody, I'm not going to say his name, but somebody that's very well known, that's been on TV as a ghost hunter for a very long time, tried to get into this place a couple of times, and the woman did not like him and told him no both times. Second time, he offered her $10,000, and she still told him no.
Oh my goodness! No kidding, Dave.
Didn't like his attitude. Said he was too cocky or something. But
well, that's awesome. Good for her.
So anyway, so during my investigation there, we caught some phenomenal stuff in the morgue area. We got some really strange light anomalies coming out from the ground, and the floor in this thing is dirt still because they had a hidden mine entrance. The mine entrance is still there. It's a big giant iron door, man, and you can open it and go, and it leads into the old coal mine. It's spooky as crap down there. And they even have this place is filled with historical artifacts. They had like an original Thomas Edison printing press under there, all kinds of stuff. And it's just the way these people were treated in Norene. I mean, there's a covered up history in America about coal mining, and there was there was actually battles fought here in West Virginia by coal miners and the government and these Pinkerton and these coal barons. And they fought military style battles. 20,000 miners marched from Charleston down to the southern coal fields one time, and they had a big battle down there because of the treatment and stuff that they had to endure, trying to make a living and make money to support their families. So So if if you're interested in that, and that's a hidden part of history of America, it's been covered up. It's not even taught in the schools here in West Virginia, which it should be. But that's what we look for as an investigator and a researcher. We look for these places that have this just terrible energy from all these tragic deaths and everything. And the Whipple Company store is definitely one of them.
Okay. Awesome, Dave. Hey, okay, Royce, Chipper wants to ask you a question, Dave. Go ahead, Chipper. What's your question? You want to take that, Royce? Let's see. We're on 30-second delay, so. All right. Well, when you're ready, a Chipper. Okay, so we're waiting for the question for you, Dave. So let's go on to the last case that you have that you're sharing with us.
Oh, Harpers Ferry.
Yeah, Harpers Ferry.
Oh, yeah. Now, I could talk about Harpers Ferry for 4 or 5 hours straight. This whole town is a very famous town, super haunted. Multiple buildings are haunted here. You got the John Brown, the John Brown, the abolitionist movement and all that there that happened right there at the Armory. And you've got just so much history right there. It's unbelievable. It was a key point during the Revolutionary War and the Civil War. You've got all those histories right there. These rivers converge, the ferries, and all. It was just a key logistical point during all this, throughout American history, really. You got the Potomac River right there, so, George Washington, all his troops were in and out of there and everything else. But there's numerous hauntings that go on there, as well as deaths. It's a very famous town in West Virginia. They have a wax museum there that, tells about the whole John Brown story and stuff, and they say it's super haunted. And I've investigated that town numerous times. There's a candy store there that had been numerous things over the years, and it's super haunted. The owners even talk about the ghostly activity in this candy store and whatnot. And I wrote about it all in my book, multiple sites on this building. And there'll be more stories because there's so many different hauntings going on in that town that, we can't really just sit there. We could talk about it for hours, but in general, the whole town is just a haunted location. There's another famous haunted spot up on top of the hill called the Hilltop. The Hilltop used to be a really famous ritzy-ditzy hotel. It's now falling to the ground, but they're raising the money to build a brand new one on that spot. And I always wanted to investigate that place, but I never got a chance before it became condemned. But guess what? My good buddy David Weatherly has investigated there, and he wrote a piece in the book for it. So you'll get to hear all about that. And you'll hear more about the whole town of Harpers Ferry in my book as well. Numerous haunted locations, numerous ghost tales from many stores and businesses in the town. Really, I don't want to say too much about that.
Oh, okay. I've never heard of that. Of course, it's not in my area,
Well, it's another one of those towns in West Virginia that basically the whole town has activity going on because of the history, because so many things happen there. Going back to the Revolutionary War, and all the way till, recent times. Same with Shepherdstown in West Virginia. That's another whole town that goes all the way back to the Revolutionary War and just has a ton of activity. In it, there's been TV shows about Shepherdstown and stuff.
Oh yeah.
Many of them.
Oh yeah. You've been to Shepherdstown. You've investigated that place.
Yeah, I have a lot of stuff on Shepherdstown that's coming in this book series. There's just a whole bunch of stuff. I want to get it out there and share it with folks, but I don't want to share it too much because I want to sell the books. You know what I mean? I was approached to be on a TV show about Shepherdstown, but they, a lot of times, unfortunately, these TV shows, they want you to work for free. And I always tell them, hey, do you work for free? And of course they say no. And I said, well, neither do I. I spend my own money and time and to go out and research and investigate these claims of hauntings. And, you know, what's right is right and what's wrong is wrong. So.
Absolutely, Dave. When will Willow's Weep be on TV?
Soon, very soon. Probably mid to late May. It's going to be on a show called The Unexplained, and it will be on History Channel.
God, that's going to be so awesome.
And I'll be on several episodes of that show, so not just one.
Well, you know, Willow's Weep has never been investigated. It's never been on television. And this will really put Willow's Weep in the spotlight once it makes
yes, it will.
Once it makes
I'll
TV.
also be, let me think here. I think it's April 17th, if I remember right. Either April 4th or April 17th. I will be on another show on Travel Channel called In Search of Monsters. The episode it was me investigating in Point Pleasant and the bunkers. So that's going to be a really cool show as well.
Oh, yeah. Point Pleasant. That's
Yeah, that'll be on Travel Channel.
Yeah.
It's one of those dates, and I don't have the time yet. That's all I know.
Oh, I love.
All I know is what they told me, and you know that's subject to change at any time. So.
I love
But I do know I will be on Paranormal 911 this coming Monday at 9 p.m. It's already been announced on the Travel Channel, and my episode, has been announced. So it's called Paranormal Prisoner. That's all I'm going to tell you.
Oh God, I know the story. Dave told me, and you got to remind me to watch that because I want to see you on camera telling that story. It's really good.
I don't want to give a shout out to my. While I think about it, because I'll forget if I don't do it right now. My graphic artist, Mark Randall. Look up Mark Randall, creative artist. On his Facebook page, he does a lot of my book work, my artwork for my book covers and for my channels and stuff. So I'm giving him a shout out. Dude does phenomenal work, and I can basically tell him what I want, and he makes it. So it's pretty cool.
Oh, yeah. It's really nice. Well, I know, Dave, you have to go.
In a few minutes, yeah. Don't forget, folks, if you want to pre-order, be one of the first ones to get the new book when it drops in the next few weeks or sooner. Go ahead and send me $23 to the PayPal, and I'll send off you a copy. You'll be in the first run. So
I don't know if a lot of people realize how haunted Willow's Weep really is, and we have done a show. Crazy. We have done a show on Willow's Weep, and after your show gets on TV with you, we'll do another show on Willow's Weep and talk more about it.
Yes,
because
the thing with Willow's Weep is, even a whole hour show on this place would not even scratch the surface. It needs its own season because that's the reason I took it over, because there's nothing else like it out there, and there's so much history and so many layers. At least 7 confirmed deaths in the house. It's crazy stuff. And there's a new book. Of course, we have a new book coming out on it later in the year. It'll be out this fall about the history, the real history and the confirmed deaths and everything that took place in this house over the years. So it's never been told, like I said, and it's never been on TV. So it's coming.
Oh, absolutely. It's going to be awesome, Dave. I can't wait. And I'm so excited for you. So many good things are happening for you this year. And I'm so excited and happy for you. And I wish you the best of luck, my friend. And we've known each other now for, 5 years now? Something like that?
At least,
yeah. And so I'm really excited for Dave. So, honey, I know you have to run. Dave's on another show tonight.
Yeah.
So
it's been a crazy week, man. Heather,
well, good for you. Good for you. Okay, honey, we wish you luck. And I put the links underneath this video on the YouTube channel. And I wish you nothing but the best, and we'll be talking. Thanks, Dave, for being with us tonight and sharing some of your stories from your book. Thanks,
Dave. The book. It's going to read like 200 pages, guys, on this. A ton of paranormal stuff in this book. And I'm sure
the cases that we went through tonight, the 5 of them, are going to be...
Oh, and, we forgot to say, Rosemary Ellen Guiley wrote the foreword to this book.
She did. Oh, yes. Wow, that's a big deal.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
That's a big deal, Dave.
Yes.
And I know Dave went more into detail. He just did the surface of these 5 cases, but if you get the book, he went into detail on these cases. Very, very interesting. Thanks, honey. Thanks so much for sharing that with us and coming on the show. And have a good show tonight, and then have a great weekend. Good night, Dave. Thanks, honey.
Thanks to all the supporters out there.
Thanks. Good night, Dave.
Good night.
Thanks.